Hey, honey. Yeah. It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedbackiest day of the week. Ha! It's Feedback Friday. It's another live Feedback Friday. Yay! And as you see, Momo is here. And I'm just going to, what's going on here? Nope. I'm going to wait for a few people to bump into the chat. I'm happy to, here we go. Here's the link. We're going to put this on Twitter and get everybody talking. This is the second live Feedback Friday I've done, and happy to do it. I'll share the link now, but it's, yes, I get it. Happy Friday. The big video this week was obviously Gamer's Guide to Feminism. Give me a sec. Here we go. Okay. So sorry about the delay there. Wanted to make sure it was raring and ready to go. I've lost my hangout now. Oh no, there we are. Okay, here we go. And yeah, the big piece this week was the Gamer's Guide to Feminism. There was some other stuff. We talked Suicide Squad. I attempted again to, you know, do a game thing, do a game stream, but that I'm really struggling with that one, guys. Really struggling with that one because everybody says do more gaming, do more gaming, do more gaming. And by gaming, they mean, you know, game capture stuff. Well, I do more gaming and the numbers are not really where they need to be. So I'm not sure what to do. I want to try to listen to feedback, and I like doing games, obviously, right, Momo? Yeah, we like games. But the traffic's just not there. Everything else does better. The issue used to be that Mountain Monday was the low ebb of the week. It's not anymore. I tweaked Mountain Monday. Now it's, you know, now it's quite healthy. The numbers are where they need to be. So I continue to do it. And it just took a small pivot. But the gaming content, I know there's a small group of y'all that really like it, but the numbers aren't there. So suggestions, please. But let's talk about Gamer's Guide to Feminism as well, about gaze theory and gender performativity. Because I know a few people, more than a few, saw the name of the video and went, uh-oh, what are you doing? And that, you know, I appreciate people gave it a chance and didn't come in terribly reactive, right, Momo? Right. Because the response was really quite positive. And like I said before, it was really humbling. It was a very dense subject. Part of the trouble with talking about this stuff regarding video games is that people, meanwhile, they do the courses, they do the reading, and they write the essays, but there's a difference between writing a paper for your professor and teaching the concept to other people. And that's part of what I think goes wrong with a lot of these discussions. There are people that may mean well, might not. I'm just giving people the benefit of the doubt, but they don't explain the concept in a way that's walking before you run. And because the thing about academics, and this is the thing that always drove me crazy about academics, is you're expected to just clobber your point home. Strong, active writing and all this stuff. Yeah, Momo doesn't like academic writing. He's going to go chase Pinky. But, you know, you're expected to hammer your point home in a way that doesn't work well at all when you're trying to create a conversation, create a dialogue about something. And so people do the, I am in charge of this topic. And it just upsets everybody because you get into these, unfortunate comments like that whole, the intent of saying it's okay to like stuff that is problematic. I hate that word. But the issue with that is that people don't hear it's okay to like it. People hear you're saying the stuff I like is bad. And yeah, of course they're gonna. But that's the standard stump speech in academia. It just doesn't work outside of academia. And these issues, the disconnect between academia and the rest of the world have been known regarding, feminist stuff. Gloria Steinem pointed it out in like the 1970s that it was a problem, that academic feminism was nearly useless in the real world because it required words that no one else understood because they were words created for academia. Now the chat's building up as well. So I'm going to address that now because there's there's a delay in this. So I have to talk for a while to get to people's questions. So guys, the last time we did a live feedback Friday, which was the first time we did a live feedback Friday, somebody got very upset, thought I was ignoring them. It wasn't that. There is a lag on the chat. So, any ideas for a follow-up gamer's guide? Can't talk about it yet. Yes, am working on a follow-up. Working on it. I don't want to distract. There's 2 more episodes of Gamer's Guide to Feminism left. One is on cultivation theory, because I think even though that's not actually a feminist concept, it's incorporated into feminism a lot. So I want people to sort of understand it and understand how it, regarding video games. Anyway, I'll save it for the video. But the next one, the very last one, is sort of a wrap up where I talk about how I think the dialogue can be improved on this measure. Because I think we've done very well together. The videos have been very positively received. So, and yeah, people in the chat said, yeah, I had a moment of trepidation on gaze theory. Yeah, I was worried about tackling gaze theory because, well, you guys saw my comments on it regarding gaming, but I felt like it had to be covered because of that sort of, yeah, there's room for it, but we have to be very, very, very careful because I said it in the video. And somebody else in the chat brought up preconceptions and biases. That's a difficult thing when you're doing infotainment. And by infotainment, I mean, stuff, fact-based programming for a popular audience. And I've spent my career doing infotainment. And people use infotainment as a pejorative. I don't believe that. I think that it's totally understandable that somebody with a busy, stressful life would like to be entertained while they're learning something. My big complaint with a lot of infotainment is that they will warp facts for a joke. And there's an art to not doing that. And I try very, very hard to, I put in little jokes here and there, but I try to maintain something that's essentially factual. There was a bit of a mishap regarding that. And I went back and looked at it and went, okay, this is iffy context. There was a really great conversation actually about whether anime characters, what race is an anime character, because I was talking about oppositional gaze and how, bell hooks, who most people go, when they hear bell hooks in gaming. Bell hooks' oppositional gaze theory is actually really useful to games. It's just, it hasn't been presented properly. And so I was trying to explain the fact that, bell hooks use the fact that Black men were often severely socially punished, sometimes violently, for even looking at a white woman. And so they used white cinema to look in a safe space. And, I pointed out that this is similar to gamers. Gamers want to be able to look at women without judgment because you know, people who are attracted to women of both genders look. And we demonize sexuality to an unhealthy degree in our society. And so people thought when I said, you know, gamers have gotten demonized for looking at women, gaming as a solution, Dead or Alive volleyball, they thought I was saying that Dead or Alive volleyball was composed of white women. I wasn't, but I understand where the disconnect was. And it, you know, led to an interesting conversation of what is the race of anime characters. And you'll see my mug. My anime mug. I consider the race of anime characters anime. And I know that's an unpopular opinion, but nobody actually looks like that. I mean, it is sort of a caricature of Caucasian features, but it's sort of, because anime and manga has this displacement paradigm as opposed to this reflection or the sort of processing paradigm that Western media has, we can't really analyze it in the same social context that we do Western media. Some stuff does still apply, but anime is often not intended to reflect reality at all. And that becomes a real issue when you're dealing with analysis. And I've seen brawls break out about this, but that's my opinion. So let's just move on. People saying that it was really nice when people said, thank you for explaining why I prefer to play as a woman. Ooh, we got a bit of lag there. And that was really valid. That was really cool. Like, that was really humbling, but in a really cool way. These are guys who play as women in games, and they thought I sort of expressed why well. And that made me very happy, because I'm the other way. I often play games as a male character. When I played World of Warcraft, it was always, I was a Tauren shaman, but I was a dude with big honking feet. And I was like, yeah, chung, 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 chung. That was awesome. I will play a lot of BioWare games. Well, I've always played Mass Effect first as FemShep because I like Jennifer Hale, but often I will play a BioWare game first as a female playable character and then second as a male character, or vice versa. I tend to want to go through them twice because I like playing. I always like try to make my character look like Wolverine. I'm not sure why, but I want like the facial hair and, you know, the shagginess and all that stuff, just because it's different. It's sort of a different performance. It's a different space, and it's cool that way because you can sort of do those things. You guys may have noticed I get criticized a lot for being aggressive, and that, you know, when you're in a video game playing as this huge dude with a sword, you're not criticized for being aggressive. And, you know, the funny thing is that's learned behavior. I was a shy little nerdy kid who would rather read in a corner than play with other kids. And so I needed to learn to sort of go. I mean, that's why my mother put me into theater. Worked a little too well, but because theater teaches you to sort of open up when you're feeling nervous, you know, stress from the boobs, and speak louder when you're nervous, because the problem on stage is the tendency when you're feeling quiet is to speak more softly, but then the audience can't hear you, right? Dynamic is different. You can have a hushed tone, but you still have to be audible. And so people, oh, you're so loud and you're so this and you're so that. It's like, I'm going to crawl into my hole and die now because no, I'm not. But oh God, what's right? And the problem is there is no right? People judge, and people judge harshly. And so let's address the more questions. I am trying to keep up with the chat, but I want to get everybody's questions. Oh, this is interesting. Does Harley Quinn look objectified to you in Suicide Squad because of her clothes compared to the other characters? I know this has come up a lot, and I know a lot of people have said yes, and this is the issue I touched on in the Gamer's Guide to Feminism video on objectification. It's a gray area because some people could say that Harley Quinn is objectified because the shorts are reduction to body or reduction to appearance. They obviously play up the fact that Margot Robbie is a very attractive woman and she's got her butt hanging out. Now, that's why I don't like using any single additional marker any of the Ray Langdon markers to Langton, apologies. I don't like using those extra 3 markers, the reduction to body, reduction to appearance, and silencing. I don't like using those in and of themselves as indicators of objectification. I think that they should have some sort of additional component that Martha Nussbaum indicated, because there's nothing about those shorts that makes Harley into an object. She speaks, she's dynamic, she's one of the stars of the movie. So is she sexualized? Yeah, but so is practically everybody in an action movie if you really look at it. Is she sexually objectified? Like I said, it's tricky. Some people, and this is a very literal definition of objectification, some people claim that anyone in a film is an object because there is a camera pointing at them. But I mean, a sociologist might say that a film student would go, no, they're the subject of the film. They are the subject of the shot. They are not the object. So my personal opinion, now that I've given you all sides, and people say this is me talking at both sides of my mouth, or people are saying, you know, oh, she can't make up her mind, or she's flip-flopping, or she's hedging, or everything. No, I'm just giving you guys the information so you can make up your own minds. But to me, I don't think Harley's objectified. I think that there have been times in the comics where she has been, but that's just because they got a little too gratuitous on the whole domestic violence angle with the Joker. But I think in general, Harley Quinn is one of those characters that was supposed to be just a one-off sidekick in a cartoon, and she's really taken on a life of her own. She's one of these characters that has so much vibrancy and so much life in her that, my God, if the Suicide Squad movie objectified her, they really screwed it up, because Harley Quinn the fan base breathed so much life into her, and I think that's important to acknowledge. Let's keep going. All right. T-Sip. Do I own the copyright to Darth Dworkin? I think Darth is probably owned by Disney, so no. The Dworkin video was a challenge because Dworkin is depressing and angering to read. And I didn't want to pass that on, because my God, reading that stuff, I was like, it's the, to borrow a metaphor from Van Jones, a CNN commentator, Dworkin is like putting ketchup on a peanut butter sandwich. There's nothing wrong with ketchup. There's nothing wrong with a peanut butter sandwich, but together, ugh. And I didn't want to pass that sort of misery on to the audience. So I came up with a funny metaphor that's caught on, and I'm very happy about that, because I think that whenever you encounter those really rabid, everything sucks activist wings of feminism, it's easier, because I know that those encounters, having had them myself, they are rattling. They really throw you because of the sheer amount of coming at you. And I wanted to give people sort of a mental device to tone that down in their own head, to sort of make it funny. And, they've gone to the dork side. So I'm very happy about that. I think that one of the things I'm trying to do is take the sting out of those encounters, because I'm not going to deny they suck. I don't like them any more than you guys do. So there we go. Does esports interest me at all, or am I more interested in world building, role playing, story focus? Esports fascinates me. I have talked about the fact I don't like the term esports. I like the term competitive gaming, because that's what it is. And I think there's too much focus on, is it a sport? Is it not a sport? There's two things that I would like to see in esports. I would love to see a more inherently cooperative sort of squad-based thing, instead of it being like, yeah, it's first team to 10 points or whatever, but there isn't sort of the same cohesion with teams that I'd like to see. It's often individual players. Yes, I know there are teams, and yes, I know there's absolutely squad tactics in team versus team competitive multiplayer, but it would be cool to actually see roles defined more and things like that. I prefer the term competitive gaming because instead of being sports for non-athletic people, it's its own thing, and it can define itself as its own thing as a form of competitive entertainment, like something like, say, a rap battle. You know, that's what I compare sort of competitive gaming to more than esports. But esports absolutely fascinates me. The thing is, it's its own world. And I have had a few failed attempts to get into some of the local scenes. The big problem I had with this one tournament that I tried to go to is that they started at 10 a.m. on a Sunday downtown. And I do not live in downtown Toronto. I'm depending on the traffic, it can be anywhere from 45 minutes to 2.5 hours to get downtown. That's how bad the traffic is in Toronto. And Sundays of the day, they often shut down transit to do work. So it's very difficult to get down for that time in the morning on that day. And so I'm very interested in it. It's pretty cool. So going on, are Smiley's white? Smileys are kind of yellow, aren't they? Again, Smiley's race is anime. People want to look upon the bodies of cyan men without judgment. You do that. What ethnicity are Picasso-style paintings? Well, that's actually interesting, that one. This is where I just start art nerding. I don't know if you guys have seen, if you go down to the, the Museum of Modern Art down in New York, they actually have some of Picasso's early process work where he was developing the abstract, the sort of cubist style. And he actually starts with, the one they showed was a bull, but there was a picture of a boy in a stable as well. And he did, straight up anatomically correct painting. And they showed how we use this sort of soft stone that you could rub down and then redraw over it to go from, okay, here's a bull. Now here's a slightly abstracted bull. Now here's a completely abstracted bull. And it showed the different steps he went through to do what he did, which is fascinating. I mean, so cool. Picasso's subjects were white. So I guess you could say his subjects were white. But there you have it. One person says they always thought the race of anime characters to Japanese by default unless stated otherwise. Again, depending on what, from a sociological approach, you could say that it's their media, but something like Claymore, for instance, where it's set in this sort of abstracted medievalist England sort of thing, you can't assume that. Something like Oh My Goddess, where they're goddesses, you can't assume race. So this is getting into the history of art in Japan and how it was affected by World War II and the stationing of US soldiers in Japan. It heavily affected their media output. And so that's why I maintain there really is no race to an anime character, because so often anime doesn't take place in Japan. It takes place in something like Naruto. I think you can absolutely say, yeah, because it's so culturally embedded in, the villages and the Japanese mythology. And, Naruto's weird for having yellow hair, blonde hair, and all that stuff. Yeah, fine. But I don't think you can default to a Japanese person until it says otherwise. Anime is anime. That's why I say that. Going on, Wolverine is Canadian power fantasy. It kind of isn't anymore because, now I'm gonna comics nerd. Wolverine is not Canadian by birth anymore, unless they redid it again. They put him in the freaking South, and then he moved to Canada. I was like, why? This is why we can't have nice things, Marvel. This is why we can't have nice things. You have to set Wolverine as some guy named James Howlett in the South, and then maybe kind of sort of that's what it was. It's not like the Joker with the whole Red Hood origin where they do this whole story because telling new stories is fun, but then the Joker goes, well, it could have happened that way anyway. So it's like, no, it's not canon. And Wolverine origin drove me crazy because the whole point is, no, we don't want to know. He doesn't know. We don't want to know. The cool thing about Wolverine is we don't know, and it can be anything we want. And then they did that, and then they made Weapon X, Weapon 10, and this is why we can't have nice things. Moving on. Sorry, that was just my little nerd freak out. What alignment was your femshep compared to your broshep in Mass Effect? Alignment. I guess that's a Paragon versus Renegade question. I will be totally upfront. I do not like the dialogue wheel Paragon versus Renegade system. My femshep was in between. I got the green ending. And that was because I played her first before I went, oh, the game rewards you for just playing pure Paragon or just playing pure Renegade. It doesn't make sense to waffle between the two. And I wish you could. Like, I wish there was sort of a more nuanced system, because there were so many races, like alien races in Mass Effect, and so many of them conflicted that I would have much preferred, and they ditched it in Dragon Age after Origins, and I really like the fact that it wasn't based on a hardwired morality in the game, because I don't like that in video games, because morality is a subjective thing in certain issues. Some things, yeah, I do believe in objective morality, but I find a lot of times that it's not a good choice or a bad choice. And I'm talking about doing a lot of pen and paper, like tabletop RPG. There's some tough mod calls. There's some tough DM calls in those things. And you really have to base it on the people playing and what makes the most sense in the world. And I find that hardwired game moralities don't always work that way, because then they tried to mess you up and imply the elusive man was a paragon. And I'm like, no, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. And what is his name? Admiral Anderson, was it? He was the renegade. I was like, no, he wasn't. He was a guy who followed orders. And the answers were not that simple. And let's stay away from the ending of Mass Effect 3, because we all kind of, but I do my normal thing in the first two games where it was like, all right, I'm going to play as I would play it. I'm going to play as my Shep, who freaking loves the Krogans and thinks blanking on the name now. Solarians. Is that right? Morgan, Solus, Morden. Ugh, it's been a while. And the buggy-eyed guys, Chafing, that guy. I didn't like them. I like the Turians. I like the Quarians. The Geth kind of freaked me out, but I sort of saw their point. That's how I played the first time through. And then I'd go through and play pure Paragon, and then I'd go through and play Renegade. And Mass Effect 3, I did not bother, because what was with that ending? Now, I did say at the time, just for the record, with the Mass Effect 3 ending, that because Halo was the dominant game franchise, I did say to people who are like, that ending sucked. And I'm like, yeah, but if it was a Halo ending, all the critics would be talking about how brilliant it is, and all the Halo players would be trolling anybody who didn't give the game 10 out of 10. I agree the endings on Halo are weak, but if that's the standard, and then we find out afterwards that Bungie was phoning in the Halo games after Halo 2, and everybody was giving them 10 out of 10s because they lost their objectivity. So that's the story. Yay, story time. Moving on. How do I feel about racial revisionism in Battlefield 1 and a lack of Canadians? Oh, man, that requires me to think about the Battlefield games at all. And I just don't. I think Canadians tend to get shafted in games as a rule. And I know Call of Duty sort of had that Canadian thing. I'm like, yay, Canadian. It's like, this is really underwhelming. But yeah. a lot of those decisions, I mean, I thought the sort of modern age part of Assassin's Creed Black Flag was brilliant this way, because they actually, if you go through and you sort of read the emails in the Abstergo computers, they talk about the fact that they're fudging history to sell more games and making it more palatable for an audience. And that happens all the time. And that's what I think Battlefield is. I don't play something like Battlefield for history. It's, you know, if you like it, great. I have tried to get into those sorts of shooters. They're not my thing. I need a campaign to learn how to learn the game, and not just the basic mechanics. Learn sort of the feel of how the game is supposed to be played. And that little 6-hour campaign that Call of Duty games and things like that had, it just wasn't enough for me. And I don't play shooters online. I don't play a lot of online games as a rule, because it's very rare I will have a 3-hour chunk of time to devote. It's not that I don't like them. It's just not my game. But yeah, I'm not going to deny there is revisionism in Battlefield. I just don't think it's worth being angry about, because there's not enough to the game in that way to me. I think that franchise is overrated. Now, I think Call of Duty is overrated as well, but for different reasons. It's the Halo effect. It's the Halo effect, and we'll leave it there. I don't understand some of these comments. Harley Quinn is silenced. I miss the Harley Quinn too. The objectification of the ventriloquist Scarface. That's an interesting question. Because the ventriloquist, this is a Batman character they're talking about, who talks through his ventriloquist dummy, and it's not really reducing that character to an object. It's speaking through. It's a different thing. Interesting concept though. That's food for thought. Gender swap Joker Harley. They have done. I've seen that cosplay. I've seen those cosplays. They're fabulous. They did do a character. I believe that they started it in Kingdom Come with a character called the Joker's daughter, who claimed to be the Joker's daughter, but probably wasn't. And it was sort of a gender swap Joker, but I never felt that character sort of hit the potential she should have had. Flashpoint. Yeah, Flashpoint as well. Flashpoint was the origin of the worst Easter egg in Batman versus Superman. That part where they show the Flash and he's like all coming out of that gooey tear in time sort of thing. People didn't understand that. And yeah. Okay, a lot of talk about Harley. Somebody says, this past Mountain Monday really showed that politics is in your area. Should I suggest taking politics out? That's your opinion, commenter, and you're entitled to that opinion. It is the minority opinion. The comments on, first of all, those videos get more likes than dislikes. And the community on Facebook who watches my stuff asked for more political stuff. So if you don't like them, you don't have to watch them. But there are people that do like it. And I'm entitled to my opinion on things. I think that I respectfully disagree. I'm sorry. I can't just say you don't like it, so I'm going to take it out. That's not constructive criticism. Politics is something where people disagree, but I think that just saying it's not my area is unfair. And I would like you to rethink this approach. Thanks. Does Suicide Squad pass the He-Man and She-Ra test? No. That's easy. No, unless there's some dude with his butt hanging out. No, it doesn't. And okay, they're fighting with the guy in the chat. I should have no shoe on head. I did that once before and it ended very badly. What ended up happening, I'll tell the story of the shoe on head story. There was a whole thing going on one of the chans. I don't remember if it was 4 or 8 chan at the time, but there was this weird conspiracy theory that I was sock puppeting or shilling on one of those boards. I do not go on those boards. I never do. But at exactly that time, completely by accident, I was goofing around with other people and did the shoe on head thing. And I posted it on Twitter. And these channers thought that I was responding to something they were talking about, even though there was a 45-minute gap. So I will never do that again. It caused way too much trouble for something that just wasn't very important. Oh yeah, the recognizing curling in sports. That was a big joke here in Canada because curling sort of the joke about curling in Canada is sort of, yeah, it's the only sport where you can drink a beer while playing, that and bowling. But curling actually is, if you've ever done it, it is tiring. When you're doing the sweeping, when you're doing the actual, that's the curling. You make the rock curl by melting the ice a little bit to move it along the path. But there is a physical component to curling. So I would say, yeah, that is a sport. You have to work together, because the thing about team sports is that working well with others and sportsmanlike conduct. And that's another thing about competitive gaming, to go back to that, because this commenter made me realize that. But the thing about esports or competitive gaming is that trash talk is a cultural thing, and that there's some of that in certain sports like basketball, but you do get in trouble if you overdo it. And if we're going to start treating gaming like a sport, we have to talk about sportsmanlike conduct, and I just can't see that flying culturally. So what game did I want to compete in? Oh, I don't want to compete. I do not have enough time to practice on any one single game, because there's so many games coming down the pipe. And eventually I'd love to have sort of a stable of reviewers, but I'd have to train them with my system first, and that requires money. And I don't know if you guys have noticed, but the minute I hit like $1,000 on Patreon, people just like, oh, well, she doesn't need the help anymore. And it's started to drop ever since. So I am not at the point where I can fund a reviewer system. So I have to play everything myself. And I like to complete games. So yeah, I'm not competing. Somebody's asking about the Killing Joke, and I want to be super careful about weighing into this, because there are a ton of sides to this. I mean, the Killing Joke is one of those stories in comics that people feel very strongly about, and it was intended to create strong feelings. Alan Moore has now said he wishes he hadn't done it. And I respect his viewpoint on that. Alan Moore is very passionate about comic books in a way that I think makes him an amazing writer. I don't agree that what happened in The Killing Joke was a mistake, but it is certainly something that was emulated by less nuanced writers, and that wasn't a good influence on comics. People love to copy Alan Moore because Alan Moore writes something and everybody goes, oh my God, it's brilliant. And people are like, I want to be brilliant. And so they copy Alan Moore instead of doing what Alan Moore did, which is tell your own freaking story, right? And Alan Moore has a lot of, violations in the stories. I mean, that weird thing in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen where Mina Harker is like mind raped in the astral plane by a hybrid Lord Voldemort wizard. I mean, it was weird, but I get what he was doing. But he has a symbolism in this sort of, he understands literary traditions, and so it works when he does it. But other people who don't have the same understanding, yikes. And so I think that the way the Killing Joke has been handled since that was, since it came to pass has been poorly done. And that's the fault of DC editorial for letting it happen. It should have said, no, he did this. Give us another story. Like, yeah, okay, it sold well, but that's not, there's a reason that there's an online counter number of days that since DC has done something stupid, and it's very frequently at 0. So I haven't seen it in the movie, and you guys know I don't like to talk about things I haven't seen. I'm sure, what the Joker did to Barbara Gordon is a misogynistic act. It is. But he's a villain. Misogyny exists in our world. Part of the reason he is evil is because he beats up Harley, and he does these things. And he's a bad guy. And I am not a fan of stripping this sort of stuff out of art or out of entertainment. Let's not call summer blockbusters art. But I'm not a fan of stripping this out. What we have to be careful of, and the reason the Killing Joke worked where other, women in refrigerators instances don't, is that what happened to Barbara Gordon was part of her story. It was not a chapter in another character's story. She had to come back from that. She had to learn to be in a wheelchair. She comes out of this wheelchair for some miracle cure, and she has guilt from it. And that is hers. She is the focal point of that narrative. It wasn't just to make Batman do something else. And that's what we have to be careful with. It's not that we can never have bad things happen to a female character. We just, like anything, we have to be careful when I know there's this thing in writing now where people just love to beat the crap out of their heroes. They just love to beat the crap out of them. And I think that's lazy. I think that there's an element of, people don't like the word misandry, but I'm going to use that in Batman as well, in that he's constantly getting shot. He's constantly getting stabbed. He's constantly getting injured. And then he's supposed to be this whole chick magnet. Well, the problem is, okay, you get naked with a woman and you look like 50 miles of bad road. Women aren't stupid. They know what gunshot wounds look like. They know what knife wounds look like. Everybody would know there was something going on there. Like, what are you into? And they don't actually address that. And it's this whole idea that men can just take all this physical damage because they're a real man. That's just not reality. Anybody who's had a traumatic injury knows it never quite heals right. And that's what I thought was so cool about Kingdom Come, is he'd been so beat up over the years, he had this exoskeleton. But again, good idea that DC never followed through with these people who say Batman's the best superhero because he could really happen in the real world. He's as much a fantasy. He runs on just as much magic, whiz-bang stuff as any other superhero. So when multiplayer games claim to focus on having an esports angle, do you think it pushes away more casual audiences? Yes, it absolutely does. Because when you have play of that caliber, I know they try to sort, and I know they had, but it doesn't work. There's always, I remember when we did the Gears of War Enhanced Edition, the one that they rebuilt, the original Gears of War, and put it out there. And we played with a couple of the Coalition guys. They slaughtered us. And I couldn't get a sense of the game because these guys were just too good. And they finally realized it and put one on each team. But the big problem with multiplayer is you lose so much off the top. And some multiplayers do a better job of getting around that than others, and they don't do especially well, which is too bad. The God of War Ascension multiplayer did a really good job of allowing people who weren't super good at that hand-to-hand multiplayer combat, because it took some getting used to, but it allowed you to do things because you had to maintain multiple bases. So you could just stand there and rack up points and, you know, take on a bit of combat, but you got the sense you could sort of learn the maps and figure out how everything worked and where everything was. And at the end of the match, you could actually do quite well in terms of team points and team play. It encouraged you to work together. And I just think that there isn't a lot there for people who aren't going to take it seriously. I also think that one of the worst things about this whole move to esports above all, or competitive gaming above all, is that 60 frames per second, don't freak out, bumped out living room, like couch co-op, split screen co-op from a lot of games. My husband and I bought every single Halo game there was, even though I am not the biggest Halo fan, because it had split screen co-op. Because he likes to play video games with me. That's the only way he likes to play video games. Because he doesn't quite understand how to unlock doors and read auto maps and all that. He just wants to shoot stuff. He just wants to kill dudes. So he'll play on easy and I'll play on hard, and we do it that way. Halo 5 we didn't buy because they stripped out that split screen co-op for 60 frames per second. And I don't know why they can't just downscale a co-op mode. Like, I don't know why they had to do that, but they decided that that was the choice they were going to make. I think it was the wrong choice because, I mean, yeah, esports is big for shooters, but there was a huge casual market. I mean, Halo was the game we used to play at the nerd parties I ran because you could do 4-player split screen co-op. And they killed that feature. And, you know, Halo 5 didn't set the world on fire, so there you go. Dork side feminists. That's cool that I'm renewing your faith in feminism. I encourage you to look beyond me. There's some pretty cool stuff out there. Bat sex changes to the Killing Joke movie. I don't know very much about the Killing Joke movie yet. I am hesitant to get into that too much because the movie's not out. And us sort of nerd types have a really lousy track record when it comes to judging movies before they come out. Everybody got on Batfleck. Everybody said, oh, Ben Affleck's going to suck. And I was like, no. And I'm like, oh, man, if I'm wrong about this, I'm going to look like a fool. But everybody's like, oh, Batfleck, Ben Affleck. He's the guy who was Daredevil. He's going to suck. I'm like, have you seen Argo? Well, no. Well, maybe you should before because he was pretty good in that. But you can't judge movies based on trailers. You can't judge movies based on promos. They are misleading. Remember how cool the Man of Steel trailers looked at Comic-Con? Oh my God, that movie looked like it was going to be incredible. It was boring. You know, remember how good the Batman versus Superman stuff looked? Trailers are misleading, so I can't judge until the thing's out. Ever cosplay as an anime character? Yeah. It was a Korean character. I cosplayed as the wizard class from a Korean level grind game called Granada Espada. And some people claim that the Soul Calibur characters are sort of anime inspired. The issue I have with anime is a lot of the anime bodies are very childlike. And I have the opposite problem. So, I mean, Dragon's Crown cosplay, awesome. But those cute little super kawaii characters, it's just a bad scene. I mean, I see those girls going around as what's her name? Is it Yuko? The one with the giant gun, and she has more gun than clothes, and she's got like the underboob thing going on. I see girls walking around that underboob. It's like, bless you, enjoy it while you can, because my boobs are so heavy that the tape doesn't even hold. It just goes, and it's really uncomfortable, and it's like yuck, and it's not fun, and yeah. That's my story. Terrence and Phillip. Dude, this is the politics guy again. Just a mess doesn't tell me anything. Either give me some details respectfully, or I'm sorry, I can't help you. So we're moving on. Showing the guy behind, can we get some, oh, the voices, the highly clipped Mr. J. Yeah, now I'm nervous. I I wish Mass Effect allowed polyamorous relationships. I had to rewatch The Last Mission with every romance and cried every time. The polyamorous relationships thing is an interesting issue because, yeah, I thought I would like to see that. I mean, polyamorous romance is challenging because the whole romantic tradition is that one person above all others, and that's a little tricky. If you want a great book on this, it's the book that redefined my assumptions about polyamory. It's a science fiction book. It's called Triptych by J.M. Fry. You've seen her interviewed on the program. And this book, part of the reason I became a J.M. Fry fan is because when I heard about this book, it's like, really? This is going to be fan service of a dude and a chick having sex with an alien. I'm not going to like it. But it wasn't about that. It was about this alien race that comes to Earth as sort of a ambassador type mission. But their culture forms family units of 3 adults. So it's not an open-ended, it's not gangbangs, it's not, swinging, anything like that. It's just their spousal unit is 3 people instead of 2. And it explores not just the fact that we may think that's weird, but to an alien culture, it isn't weird. That's their normal. And the reason given in the book is that the resource scarcity is such on this planet that you actually need 3 parents to raise a child. So, it was like, all right, I can see how this works. And this is the glory of science fiction. This is science fiction at its best in this regard. But it made me think about it. But the book also shows that it is not so simple to just go from 2 to 3, because that isn't our cultural shift. And so there were challenges and stuff like that to that. So I agree. It would have been interesting to, I know this is a tangent, but I was very upset at the treatment of pansexuality in Dragon Age Inquisition. The fact that, the Iron Bull is pansexual, but he's constantly like gender griefing Dorian for wearing a dress because he's a mage. No, it's a robe. And pansexuals are supposed to just sort of, it doesn't matter what gender you are. The Iron Bull, I think, is just more of a sexual glutton than a pansexual. And it's really unfortunate that they decided to social justice a character instead of just allowing him to be, the liar in the game. They had to slap that label on him, because when you do that, he becomes sort of this poster child for pansexuality, because you don't hear that definition. Because for people who are like, why do we need it? Why can't he just be bisexual? Well, because pansexuality comes from the idea of intersex people as well, and that there isn't binary gender. So a bisexual person may be attracted to men, may be attracted to women, but only cisgendered men and women. A pansexual person is attracted as well to, transgendered men, transgendered women, intersex, hermaphrodite, stuff like that. That is the difference. And I question why this is included in the game at all, because video game characters rarely have genitals, except in Outlast, and those were pretty impressive rods. The Deus Ex BioWare thing. I'm going to answer this question because I am not trying to show I am not trying to dodge questions, but oh man, this is a can of worms we're opening up here. Well, I think we're talking about the All Lives Matter thing. And I've been thinking about this a lot, because I see the sensitivity in using Black Lives Matter as part of a game about cybernetically augmented human beings who are not Black. And the fight is between people who think that Black Lives Matter is sacrosanct and people who think that science fiction should be allowed to express a concept. And I can't tell either side they're wrong because one doesn't disprove the other. It's a question of that unfortunate area of offense, and art has the right to offend. Like that's the way I feel. Like, yeah, it was offensive. It was likely deliberately provocative. It was offensive to some. It was deliberately provocative. And so you're going to provoke some people. That's the realm of art. I mean, it provoked some people when they put gay relationships in Mass Effect. It may not be in the best taste, but I like South Park, so I feel like I would be hypocritical to condemn the Deus Ex developers for their artistic choice, because I see what they were trying to do, even if it doesn't necessarily work. It's like the Metal Gear thing, right? The Metal Gear Solid thing with Quiet is the stated intent was to challenge people's assumptions regarding objectification. Some people believed it just didn't work, but you can't deny that was Kojima's stated intent. So it's a gray area, and I hope I answer the question. That's my take on it. To be very clear, my take is, and I'm saying this as somebody who is quite, I don't want to say I'm supportive of Black Lives Matter, because I'm like, what about this? What about this? I think they have made some colossal mistakes, and I think they need a lot of work with their messaging to refine it and to strip the bad anger out of it instead of the motivating anger out of it. Strip the hate out of it. Keep the anger in, because they have a point. They have a point, and they have a point whether we like the way they're saying it or not. That's the way I feel about Black Lives Matter, but I feel that way about art too. They have a point. They have the right to make that point, whether we like it or not. So, and this comes down to whether you treat games from a sociological lens or whether you treat games as art. I treat games as art. And to be clear, I really like Manveer here. I really like him. I think he's a cool dude. I've interviewed him. He has an important role to play in gaming. I see where he's coming from. I just have a different perspective. And people go, oh yeah, you're white, you're white, you're white. Of course you'd say that. No, I grew up in a predominantly Black neighborhood. I saw the reason I am sympathetic to Black Lives Matter is I saw the crap they're talking about. It's totally real. It totally happens. And, you know, I think they have the right to speak about it. To me, I see it differently, though. I see the fact that they're using that in a game to denote a cyberpunk underclass. I think that's actually an indication that the Black Lives Matter message is getting through. And I know that's probably not a popular opinion, but, you know, hypothetically, it is an indication it's saturating into the culture. People are starting to get it, even if it's sort of awkward baby steps at first. And I know there are some people that feel very strongly about the uniqueness of the Black American experience. And I don't deny that. The issue is, you know, I tried to make the same argument about the uniqueness of things like apartheid and the Holocaust. And I don't think you can call something modern apartheid or a modern, you know, Holocaust just because it's genocide. I think those are very unique things, but people use them all the time. And I have to accept that even though I don't like it. So that's where I'm coming from. Hopefully that addressed your question. I wish more of the decisions were more nuanced in Mass Effect. I agree. And yeah, the Geth decision was probably one of the better ones. I thought the Krogan genophage was an interesting moral choice as well, more in how they rolled out, because that was an allegory for sort of, I think, giving, you know, arming the various peoples in the Middle East to try to combat a foe, and then they became the foe, and then we have to deal with this problem we created. That was an allegory for that for me. You know, agreed, when you have this binary Paragon Renegade choice, you really can't be nuanced. Vampire the Masquerade, why is it the best RPG? That's interesting. Here's why I like Vampire the Masquerade. I like its character creation system, because for every point benefit, for people who don't know how the character creation system works, it's not a series of stats that you roll a d20 and okay, 18 strength, you know, 4 intelligence. Vampire the Masquerade allows you to create characters. You have these lists of perks and then sort of negative attributes. And for every, and they're all assigned a number. So you have to balance out your stats. So, you know, I had a character who's awesome at celerity, which means he could move really fast, but I had to make him a blind heroin addict sort of thing. And he was a Toreador, so he had like the herd. So, oh, people love him. And this character was he was a former member, because he's a Toreador, a former member of the Chamberlain's Men, which means he did Shakespeare back in the day. But he was the guy that played the women. So I made him really physically weak and all that. And the whole idea was a child prodigy piano player and he plague victim. So he got hooked on laudanum, the whole thing. But I had to create this backstory to explain this combination of attributes that I'd created for the character. It's an awesome character design system. I'm just sorry World of Darkness broke the world. I know why they did it, but I don't like World of Darkness. I like vanilla Vampire the Masquerade. The floor clock. Oh, that thing in the back. Yeah, I bought that thing. I'm an antiquer. And unfortunately, a lot of the time, you guys notice that it's sort of redecorated. I have this like fireplace hearth now. The cats really like it. Momo really likes the new fireplace. That came because my sister was moving and was going to get rid of it. I'm like, what? No, it's cool. I haven't nerded it yet, though. So it looks a bit boring to me. There's like a Darkwing Duck snow globe on it, but that's about it. It needs more nerd. But yeah, I antique. I like old wood. And so I found that clock when I was out somewhere. I don't know where to put it. I've had it for like 7 years. Every time I try to put it somewhere, it's a reproduction. It's not a real antique, but it's a reproduction of one of the Victorian sort of. They're designed to sit on side tables and reach above other things so you can see it. But yeah, the base is wider than they make stuff for nowadays, so I'm still working on it. But I'm glad you like it. Yeah, Mass Effect Andromeda incorporates D&D morality system and then fans of style. I'll address these two questions with the same answer. The D&D morality system, I actually prefer the Dragon Age Origins morality system. I talked about this, but I'll talk about why. Neverwinter Nights was the game that made me realize the flaws in the D&D morality system. And I mean, I love D&D. I love the Forgotten Realms. So I say this with love. You know, Ed Greenwood's a local guy, and every time I see it, I'm like, Ed Greenwood. He is Elminster. Dude is so cool. But the problem with the D&D morality system in a video game is because it was designed for a tabletop experience where the dungeon master could make decisions on the fly. Neverwinter Nights didn't do that. And I could not keep a lawful good alignment to save my life. And I play lawful good characters all the time. I love my paladins because they're fun. My D&D paladin is a guy named Felspar, you know, the name for Fool's Gold, because he's that flowing blonde hair hero. You know the PC Master Race character on Zero Punctuation? He pretty much looks like that, but he's dumb as a box of rocks. And it's so fun to play him because he doesn't need to be smart. He has faith. And so he's a priest. He's a paladin of Helm, and he's always running in, and he doesn't need to be very smart because everything he needed to know about life he learned from Helm. But the problem that I found is that when you're playing, you know, a paladin of Helm, a paladin of Lathander, a paladin of whoever, your lawful system is based on your religion. So, you know, yes, you have to follow local laws as a lawful character, but if you're getting your powers from a god, you have to obey that god. And morality for a paladin of Helm is not going to be the same as another god, but Neverwinter Nights treated it all equally. And so I was just constantly getting busted down. Screw it. I restarted, played as a rogue because I love my rogues too. What I liked about Dragon Age Origin, it was all party approval system. So it wasn't saying that some things were right and some things were wrong according to the game. It was this character liked it, this character didn't like it. And the big issue I have with hard-wild morality in games is that traditionally it punishes female sexuality. It treats sexualized women as evil or immoral characters. And you all know I disagree with that. I mean, Isabella is one of the coolest Dragon Age characters. She just is. She's super complex. She has so many layers because she's allowed to have flaws. And I mean, her promiscuity is part of that whole pirate trope, right? That whole pirate captain thing with a woman in every port. They gave it to a woman and people complained about it because they thought the venereal disease jokes were slut shaming. And it's like, yeah, it is. But it's the same thing I'm talking about the killing joke. Misogyny exists, so it's okay to put it in the game as long as you don't say it's a good thing. And I think that we've really lost that in the increasing, we must show strong female characters. No, we want interesting female characters. And I feel like this sort of one nobility to rule them all kind of thing in terms of ethics, not ethics, morality. But I think it especially stifles female characters. And I like the, you know, can you really say Morrigan is a good person? No, but she's totally understandable. You can totally understand why she is the way she is. She's an incredibly crafted character. She's very different than Liliana, but they're both nuanced in their own ways, right? Very different from Isabella, nuanced in their own ways. You don't get that nuance of character when you've got a hardwired morality system. So that's why I maintain the Dragon Age Origin system is the best morality system. And yes, I do not agree with calling people who didn't like the ending of Mass Effect 3 entitled brats. But that again was the fact that what I think happened is that BioWare players demanded more from gaming than other fan bases. And that got labeled entitled instead of recognizing that that showed how amazing what BioWare had done was. And I think instead of recognizing, oh, wow, you know, these fans are raising the bar for everybody who should be raising the bar for everybody. You know, it got turned around, but people don't like change. This is what I was saying before. People don't like change. The idea that they'd have to work harder, people get bothered by that. But you know, I think the whole retake Mass Effect thing was a good thing. Why do so many people find it acceptable to drool over Bloom's, I'm assuming Orlando Bloom's dick pics, whereas they'd probably be horrified if a woman's used in the same circumstances? I addressed this in the gaze and gender performance video. It's because of gaze theory. It's that a man looking at a woman, according to gaze theory, is objectifying. A woman looking at a man is empowering. It's not so. I prefer gender performance. In the video, I use Rainbow Mika and Ryu as the comparison there. So go watch the video. I like the morality system in New Vegas. I did too. It's similar to what I was saying. I'm going to skip through because this is stuff that, sorry. Do I like Dark Souls? I've never heard my opinion on it. Yes. The problem with Dark Souls for me is it is a hard game, and I have issues with my hands, and I could not finish Bloodborne because of that hand issue. That stupid spider fight killed me because you're constantly strafing. There's so much constant applied pressure on my hands that it was so painful, even with wrist brace, everything. So I like them, but I can't play them. That's why you haven't seen me play them. It's also very hard to talk while playing those games because they require an intense amount of concentration. So how do I feel about Wonder Woman taking place in World War I as opposed to World War II? How do I put this? It's disappointing for me that they're mucking with Wonder Woman instead of trying to tell a good, solid, back to basics Wonder Woman story. Because the reason I loved the Bruce Timm stuff, another awesome dude. The reason I loved the Bruce Timm stuff is because they take all the best stuff that's already existing with these characters, boil it down to something that they can put in a cartoon, and they make it awesome. They don't try to reinvent the wheel. And I'm feeling like there's too much reinvention of the wheel with Wonder Woman. instead of just working with what you have and showing why Wonder Woman is good and not trying to overthink it, they're mucking with it. And I know why they're doing it, but I mean, World War I is the new World War II. They think World War II is done to death. I'm sure some executive said, no, you can't do World War II. It's too Captain America, because that's the way these guys think. It's too Agent Carter. And so I'm sure that's why they bumped it back. I'm sure there was some cynical reason. I'll see what they do with it. I have not really been thrilled about the way they've been handling Wonder Woman, period. But I'll wait to see the movie. I liked Gal Gadot. I don't think there's enough of a performance in Batman versus Superman to say I loved her. And I thought for most of the movie, she was a great Selena Kyle, but that wasn't Wonder Woman. And then that, you know, that one scene that I go, oh, she was so good, you know, because she got knocked over by this guy. And then she went, oh, she seemed all happy. You know, I'm like, yeah, okay, that was a cool moment. But in the context of, okay, there's this monster that they don't know how to kill. Why doesn't she have her head in the game? You know? And yeah, it was this cool little thing. Oh, she likes the fight. But that was sort of, you know, Batman versus Superman in a nutshell. It was a collection of cool moments instead of a cohesive movie. Oh, what is the He-Man and She-Ra test? The He-Man and She-Ra test is something I use to sort of, instead of saying, oh, it's a woman in a chainmail bikini, that's bad. It's if a woman, like the He-Man is just wearing underwear and like a chest harness. So She-Ra's basically in the equivalent of a bathing suit with a fan on her head. That's fine, because they're both equally naked. You know, Conan the Barbarian, which He-Man is based on, and Red Sonja, similarly, the men aren't fully clothed while the women are like half naked. So something passes the He-Man and She-Ra test is if you line the character up, the women don't look significantly more naked than the men. That's what it is. It's just a nice little litmus test to see if they're actually considering, you know, and it's people of both classes, so of the same class. So you don't take, you know, a knight or a warrior that has full armor, put them next to sort of a wizard and say, oh, it fails the He-Man and She-Ra test. Like, no, a wizard has lighter armor. So you line up the female wizard with the male wizard and see how that compares. And that's usually where games fail the He-Man and She-Ra test. But not always. There is some warrior stuff. I mean, it's the whole chick with the sword thing. If that's not armor, armor doesn't protect. There's a huge fight about that. But, you know, in the case of Wonder Woman, I maintain that she's exposed because Amazonian warriors were expected to fight without armor. They had a different combat style that focuses on agility. And I mean, the girdle of Gaia is magic, so we forgive a lot of stuff there. But, you know, that Wonder Woman costume isn't supposed to be practical. But that's the He-Man and She-Ra test. Olympics committee, no gifts. You can drink a beer while bowling. Try it. It works. Yes, Alan Moore regrets the Killing Joke. He's talked about it. He feels like it was too violent. Just the story, doing that to her. He says if he were to do it now, if he were to go back and redo it, he wouldn't do it. Since Grand Admiral Thrawn is in Star Wars Rebels, do you think they will bring the trilogy to the big screen? No, they're keeping those properties very separate because Disney TV does very well. And the games division, they're reworking. So, keep going. Disney is paying critics to trash DC movies. We just now Disney's not paying critics to trash DC movies. Disney runs its own race. Disney does not care about what anyone else is doing. They are a very internal company. They are innovative in that way. They are their own ecosystem that trains triple threat talent, and they have this format where their feature films everything's driven to merchandise, right? That's where they make a ton of money. So they want properties like Frozen's the classic example of they had a monster song from that movie that they could do 2 versions of. And what was it, Demi Lovato who did the less good, less Broadway, Let It Go, Let It Go. But they can transfer that to Disney Radio. Yeah, they have Disney Radio. And then they sell a buttload of toys. And that's sort of Disney's thing. So they don't care about the reviews of other things. Misanthropy rather than misogyny, it's very different things. And yeah, the Joker is a sadistic, narcissistic psychopath. Of course, he hates everybody. Exactly. In the 1970s, art was reduced to the artist's expression instead of provoking thought. That's why a red dot on a canvas sold for millions and the whole Warhol thing. Question. Oh, I missed her. Oh, that's too bad. Okay. Wish they had remastered Gears 2 and 3 like they did with the Master Chief Collection. Yeah, I would have thought that was cool too. I would have loved to play a remastered Gears of War 2, but the purpose, just so you guys know, of the Coalition doing a remastered Gears of War is so they could learn the basics. It was a teaching exercise. They wanted to train people about how to make a Gears of War game because Cliff Bleszinski's not there anymore. So they wanted people to understand. That's why we put that item there. That's why we set up this level this way. That's why they did it, as well as by now the original Gears looked kind of rough. Still fun as anything to play, though. There have been a couple of articles that implied the Killing Joke promotes violence against, screen jumped, against women in real life. Do you believe that sort of narrative? I do not believe that movies promote violence against women in real life. And here's why. Well, this is sort of stealing the thunder for the cultivation video. So the cultivation theory video, which is the next Gamer's Guide to Feminism. So I will be addressing that. Short answer is no. Stay tuned for why. Okay. Questions. Hasn't seen what? I'm not sure. More comments. All right, I jumped to the bottom. Sorry if I missed anything. I got. Wow, I've missed some comments here. I can't find. Oh, they're talking about police. Okay, the chat is talking amongst itself. So maybe this is a good time to call it. I set this up for an hour and a half. Good conversation, guys. Thanks. This was productive. So thanks for joining. I'm sure that people will watch. Happy Feedback Friday. Keep watching. And yes, if I missed your question, it was not deliberate. As you guys saw, I took negatives as well as positives, and disagreed respectfully when required. So we'll do this again probably in a month. I'm trying to do them once a month at least. And that's good. Thank you guys. You guys are awesome. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Yes, I'd love to keep going, but people complain when my videos are too long, and there are people are already complaining about skipping tough questions. No, I tried to answer every question, but some people are never satisfied. All right, guys, thanks so much for the chat. Talk to you later.